There is a shadow cast over the history of money, a metal that has been consistently used, hoarded, and relied upon for over 4,000 years. Yet today, it is universally dismissed as gold's poorer, more volatile cousin. We are talking about silver. It's the metal of ancient Roman coins, the bedrock of the first United States dollar, and the foundation of virtually every successful currency system in history. Yet right now, its value relative to gold is sitting at a historical extreme, an almost insulting valuation. But this isn't just about history and speculation. This is about a monumental physical reality happening in the world right now. The solar panic. The world has unanimously decided to pivot to green energy, solar panels, electric vehicles, 5G infrastructure, and in doing so, we have unwittingly backed ourselves into a technological corner where one element, this cheap, undervalued metal, is the essential, irreplaceable key. The world is transitioning away from fossil fuels and, in the process, is creating a silent, structural demand shock for silver that the global mining industry cannot and will not be able to meet. Get ready to look at silver not as a dusty old coin, but as the hidden, conductive artery of the 21st century economy, because its current price is one of the biggest, most shocking anomalies in human financial history. To truly understand why silver is so dramatically undervalued, we must begin with a tale of two metals and the oldest continuously tracked exchange rate in the world, the gold-to-silver ratio. For millennia, this ratio, which simply tells you how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, was relatively stable. Ancient Egypt referenced a near 1.1 yaran tui, Yao dollars ratio, but over time and geography, it settled around a much more consistent figure. The Roman Empire fixed it at 12.1 duels. The United States, in its Coinage Act of 1792, legally mandated it at 15.1 duels. This historical average, spanning thousands of years, typically hovered somewhere between $12 and $16 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold.
This wasn't just an arbitrary number. It was a physical and economic reflection of their relative abundance in the Earth's crust. Gold is, physically, about 17 times rarer than silver. Yet, today, the market ratio often spikes well above $801, and at its most extreme in recent history, it touched $1,201. This is the glaring anomaly. It means that the market is valuing silver at 5 to 6 times less than its historical, geological, and even legal precedent suggests. This is not normal, and it begs the question, how did this historical partnership break down? The pivotal shift the moment silver lost its monetary crown came with a series of political and economic decisions in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ultimately culminating in the abandonment of bimetallism, the system where both gold and silver backed a currency. As massive new silver deposits were discovered in the American West and around the globe, supply swelled. Governments, driven by powerful banking interests, who preferred the scarcity and ease of gold for settling massive international debts, systematically demonetized silver. The narrative was simple. Gold was the pure, stable money of empires. Silver was the volatile, messy money of the people. Once silver was no longer legally required to be held in bank vaults to back currency, it suffered a profound identity crisis. It ceased being seen as money and was officially relegated to the status of an industrial commodity. This is the foundational reason for the undervaluation. While gold remained the reserve asset, silver became tethered to the boom and bust cycle of the global economy, swinging wildly based on factory output, not financial fear. Most people don't know that this change was an institutional choice, a political pivot, not a natural economic evolution. And for the next 100 years, that identity as a mere industrial metal suppressed its price, causing the gold-to-silver ratio to balloon far beyond any historical measure. But here's the real twist, the structural shift that is now colliding with the legacy of that historical demonetization. The industrial necessity. Unlike gold, which is mostly stored in vaults or worn as jewelry, meaning nearly every ounce of gold ever Mind is still in existence, and available silver is consumed. It is used up, melted down, and often embedded in technologies in such trace amounts that it is uneconomical to recycle. And what is it being consumed by? The global green energy revolution, or what we've dubbed the solar panic. Silver is the most electrically and thermally conductive element. Known to monit is literally the best possible material for moving electricity. This is not an opinion. It is a physical law. Every single solar photovoltaic cell, the engine of the renewable energy movement, uses silver paste for the busbars and contacts that capture and transmit the electricity generated from light. There is no viable, cost-effective substitute. If you use copper or aluminum, the cell's efficiency drops so dramatically that the entire economic model of solar power collapses. As governments across the planet rush to meet their net zero targets, demanding gigawatts upon gigawatts of new solar capacity, they are placing a direct, inescapable demand on the finite global supply of silver. Think about this sheer scale. Solar demand for silver has exploded, becoming one of the single largest consumers of the metal, eclipsing even jewelry. We are talking about hundreds of millions of ounces needed just for solar panels every single year. And that's before you factor in the explosion in electric vehicles, which use significantly more silver in their battery management systems, contacts, and charging networks than traditional internal combustion cars. Now overlay this demand with a fundamental supply problem. Silver is primarily a byproduct metal. Less than 30% of silver production comes from primary silver mines. The rest is dug up as a secondary yield when mining for copper, lead, or zinc. This means the supply of silver is not elastic. It cannot rapidly increase in response to a soaring silver price, because it depends on the economic viability of other base metals. The world's primary silver mines are seeing resource depletion, political challenges, and rising costs, leading to stagnating, or even declining, overall production. This creates a perfect storm: surging, non-negotiable industrial demand, meeting a rigid, shrinking, and structurally limited supply. This is where things take a turn. The twist is that the very thing that suppressed silver's price for industrial classification is now its greatest catalyst. When silver was demonetized, it became cheap, which made it the perfect, affordable, conductive material for emerging technologies like photography, electronics, and now solar power. Its cheapness drove its industrial adoption. But now, that adoption has reached a critical mass. The world needs solar power to meet climate goals, and solar power needs silver, period. This places silver in a unique economic position. It is simultaneously an irreplaceable, finite, critical industrial metal and a historical monetary asset that is trading at a massive discount to its long-term average against gold. It is being squeezed from both sides. On the industrial side, demand is pulling it higher, forcing the world to consume its dwindling above-ground reserves. On the financial side, if even a small fraction of the capital sitting in the gold market were to rotate into silver to normalize that $801 historical ratio, the price movement would be astronomical because the silver market is so much smaller and less liquid than the gold market. It is like trying to fill an Olympic swimming pool with a garden hose versus filling a bathtub. The most shocking part is the physical truth of the market. Unlike gold, which is primarily stockpiled, when you buy silver, you are betting against an industrial machine that is consuming the asset. We are literally running down the world's accessible inventory of silver in real time, all in the name of a cleaner, more electrified future. This is the mind shift economy moment. We have to shift our perception of silver from a volatile commodity to an irreplaceable strategic asset. It's the industrial lifeblood of the 21st century. The $151 ratio of history was based on the balance of monetary roles and geological reality. The $801 ratio of today is based on a historical market mispricing that is being relentlessly battered by an overwhelming, inelastic industrial necessity. The very act of building the future requires a metal whose supply is constrained and whose above reserves are being systematically depleted. When the market finally recognizes that the green energy transition is not just good for silver, but dependent on it, the revaluation will be sharp, fast, and driven by a structural panic. it will not be about speculation. It will be about the physical supply chain shutting down because the one essential element is too rare, too consumed, and too necessary to be dismissed as mere sheep metal ever again. This is why silver is not just a good investment, but perhaps the single most fundamentally mispriced physical asset on Earth, waiting for the industrial clock to strike zero.